Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast. I'm Jessica Raypatch, owner of Twin Legacy Solutions. Today I'm here with Lori McColl, CEO of WHIM Innovation. I'm very excited to have her today because we are going to be talking IT and AI operations side, which is something I've been waiting to talk about. So, welcome, Lori.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'd love to just start off by letting you tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and what you're doing, what you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, for myself, I say I build businesses. That has come in many different fashions. Half my career was Big Four in enterprise SAP implementations and process automation. And then the most recent half has been as a CEO and Chief Growth Officer for a boutique digital product development agency, which now has really been focused on automation and AI agent development. But with that company, we say we help businesses do more with less, which is implementing technology in a way that enables either 2x productivity or diversifies revenue streams. And so we play on both sides of the balance, or both sides of the P&L, but I'd say most recently probably our more of our focus has been in the OpEx side of AI and how automation and AI can help companies in that area.
And that's such a hot topic, and that's what people are looking for. We're finally made it, 2026. Everybody is jumping on the AI wagon, which is amazing because those getting in first they're thriving right now. So I'll kick it off by asking you, many companies rush to buy new IT systems, but why is it so critical to identify their operational issues first before implementing that technology?
That is such a great question. And I love it because you and I both are in the AI world,
Mhm.
but have actually been focused on the doing versus the marketing, right? Because there's a lot of challenges within that. Here's what I will say, um, is that it feels like in today's corporate enterprise world, everybody wants to be Amazon shopping. They literally want a 2-day delivery on all of their problems, and that includes technology a lot. So, what I'm hearing at a higher level, we know a couple things. Technology best supports, and whether that's AI, whether that is software, whether that is cloud infrastructure, whether that is big data, because some of us have run through all of those trends, there is this feeling, I think, of complexity and overwhelm. And as a result, people are looking for just a quick answer. And technology is the last place you should look for a quick answer. I was kind of thinking about how I'd frame a couple things because one of the huge buzzwords when it comes to business case for large IT or automation projects or AI now is technical debt. The infrastructure, data, and processes that have been underserved over the years because perhaps they were not core to driving revenue or core to the business. But as you get into the new AI world, which is really a data intelligence world, they are the foundation of everything. So technical debt is still an issue, but I think clarity debt is an issue as well, which is the understanding of the technical requirements, the process requirements, and the problem that you're trying to solve. Most importantly, the problem you're trying to solve, and then how do you build the super team around that problem to get you to the right answer before you go Amazon shop for just something, abccompany.ai, like I can't tell you how many people have bought software without doing the work before, the technical feasibility, the infrastructure, the business readiness, all those steps. And then they implement the technology. It goes 2 times over budget, doesn't hit the deadlines, and gets implemented in a very minimal MVP way. And then they carry on. Perspective, what are your thoughts?
I could totally relate and agree. So back in my IT years before AI kind of hit the board here, that was a reoccurring issue. People were using technology as the solution and totally ignoring the problem. So I would get hired on as IT consultant, come in and they're like, yes, we want this IT software. So and so's using it. It's real high tech, it's edge. Like we want it all. Bring your team in. And I was like, stop using
Is
it
that where
for.
you had Insert eye roll.
And I'm like, but what's your process? Well, in this department, they do X, Y, and Z. Over here, they do A through C. Okay, so what's the process? Oh, well, we're thinking that once we implement the system, we'll get the process in place. So I did a lot of mentoring of, no, wait, listen, we're going to spend the first like 3 to 6 months identifying, optimizing, centralizing, streamlining. That system is only going to work if you have all of that in place because we hear it all the time, garbage in, garbage out.
Out.
You can
Mm.
build a system. Sure, I can build a system, spend $1 million on my system. Please take my money. But then 6 months from now, you're going to come back and say it's broken. There's errors. How can I build a workflow that works if your process isn't working? It's broken. So before we make a system that's going to be fluid and influential and actually optimize your performance, let's optimize your data going in. Let's do that first. And people don't want to hear that. I love how you said people want a quick fix, like we're Amazon shopping. You can't really do that, nor should you do that. That's a detriment to your business these days.
100%. And I was kind of thinking about this a little bit more so I could frame it when we were talking today. Technology should be the last decision
Yes.
after you fully understand the problem, and when I say the people, all the departments that are supporting or enabling either inputs or outputs or users of the process that support it. It's like technology can accelerate the visibility of your weaknesses.
So true. That is so true.
It's, and I don't know, Jessica, do you remember like back in like the waterfall days of enterprise implementations where you'd be like, ooh, step one is just, discovery, and then you go here and then here and here.
Yes.
You had a
Yes.
waterfall. So
Yes.
when we were leading really large implementations, we used to call it like the snowplow effect, where when you start an implementation and you're like, ooh, big issue here, big issue here, and
Just
then the
keep
snowplow
pushing.
comes through and just keeps pushing it towards the go, no go decision.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like the snow is like coming in.
But we can save it.
Exactly. You're literally driving the snowplow, right? Like the snow doesn't stop until you hit the brick wall. And honestly, the brick wall is always that go, no go decision. And
Yep.
I feel like a lot of the lack of investment in your processes and the lack of investment in people,
Yes.
one of the things that is happening is that I think, they're saying that on average, employees today have to have 3 to 5 new digital skills. That could be something from writing prompts in your enterprise GPT all the way to, do you know how to check this AI agent that runs your invoicing to see what went wrong with it? And if you don't identify and fix those pieces, the inputs and the outputs, then you're just accelerating yourself to the brick wall. Like the technology will be eventually you'll be like disappointed and you'll have a very expensive support and maintenance group agreement with the vendor that probably did it for you, and they'll keep finding ways to blame, to not blame, well, they do blame, but
Yeah.
also to identify these things that we're saying as the issue. It just accelerates all of this faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm sure at your company, like we've talked in the past, you're not going to implement a system for a client who didn't have that mapped out already. So what's cool about your boutique service is personalized so that you can help the client do that. Because in a world where everything's coming fast and furious with how many different AI systems are out there, and then IT, the coding languages, interacting with the AI agents that they're starting to implement inside these IT systems because they're not totally gone. They're probably never going to be totally gone. It's just you need that person interaction. Like you need that human evaluation and they need to invest in it because in the long run, like you said, like, they're spending all this time, this money to invest these systems and then they're broken and there's
Abs-
no going back. And then what are you going to do? And then they fire like the
yeah.
IT team or they take them out and say, okay, great, good luck. And then no one knows how to fix it, all any of the
Yeah.
issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, they set up like AI business champions within each of the departments who also are still trying to figure that out. You've got traditional IT, which a lot of this new technology, digital and AI, is a little bit outside of their core skill set
Oh
because
yeah.
it's all different platforms, integrations, and it integrates into software very differently. And so it's part of the reason why the digital transformation, which I agree is a horrible term. It should have been branded differently, but the chief digital officer role never really survived in between. It's because AI, digital product development is not consistent as far as like department, P&L, accountability, ownership, all of those things. And that's where AI is sitting now too. With all of these pieces, there's so many greater questions around how do you restructure your organization? What kind of skill sets do you need? That's if you get it in place, you know?
Yeah, and I think people are stopping there. They want to do it, they don't know how to do it. So, my next question touches on that a little bit too. How can the leadership teams tell the difference between process problems and technology problems? Because some people we go in and they're like, oh no, I have a fluid process. This is how we do things, and this is how our workflow is, and they think it's great and they're ready for technology. But how can they differentiate between a process problem and a technology problem?
I think that's a fantastic question. Usually, when we talk with companies that are struggling with something, it's always the problem that they usually come to us with is a secondary, it's more of a symptom than it is the problem. Like, for example, like one of the most recent projects we did with a company here, they came to us because their workforce, and they are very unique. They are a 100-year-old ferry company. So they have a very unique problem. Their problem was that, the most knowledgeable part of their workforce was retiring. And the
Yeah.
young and up and coming generation was obviously asking for more tools. Why are we doing things this way? And so that was a symptom, but not necessarily the problem, right? There were no SOPs. The problem was everything was pretty manual, which got them to where they needed to be. Everything
Yeah.
was extremely manual. Everything, took 2 to 3 times as long as it does with technology. And so that's where once we identified some of the symptoms, we then started to do discovery and technical feasibility to determine whether it was process inconsistency, people performing processes inconsistently, or whether the technology was the problem. And we have this one thing that we do, it's called walk the wall. And basically, when we used to all come into the office and whiteboard, now I could say we could walk the Miro board. You basically bring everybody into a room and you'd say, okay, here's the first flow. Let's take it from end to end. And
Love it.
across all the teams, be able to say, okay, that system, whether it's a CRM or a finance and accounting or a workflow management system, there's always that like system actually should be able to handle that nuance, or whoa, those are two totally different processes. It's no wonder the system doesn't know what to do and
Hmm.
you're having to manually intervene. But yeah, so I'd say process shows up really as inconsistency, which is people doing things the same job like 3 different ways. And really technology shows up as friction. Technology is that friction point, like, oh, why won't it just do this?
Yeah.
Or why do I have to completely enter in why do I have to double enter information into two systems? Like those are some of the things. Process is inconsistency, technology is friction.
And this is an off question, but as you that's my kind of IT project management. I'm a get everyone in the room and let's talk it out and see where we collaborate.
Yes.
I wonder how often do you realize now how many things could either be centralized or interfaced, because we always get the users are like, I'm sick of doing a X, Y, and Z twice, 3 times, whatever. And I'm just like, this
Uh,
could be something we can analyze and then solve. And we might even have the tools in house to already consolidate. Do you see that?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Let me share with you a project that we did last year in a way, just that it's like a really great example of this.
Yeah.
We were working with a well-funded entity that was carved out of a very large Fortune 500 company here. And it was a pretty impactful innovation district here. But innovation districts can have 5 to 6 different industries all in one. And we had worked across a couple of departments, but the one department that was just getting slammed by the lack of process, by some of the cultural things with how they did business day to day, how they worked together day to day, balls were getting dropped. And So we worked with a marketing team and basically centralized the intake for 6 or 7 different departments. The intake process all flowed through service management, and we standardized how the I'd hate to say, but like the PR, like the media request form, the
Yeah.
social media coverage, the photography, like all the different inputs that like requests that come into marketing.
Yeah.
We basically put it through one service management solution so that everybody was working off the same thing and everybody had visibility into what everybody's working on. So if somebody was grabbed in the hall after a meeting and said, oh, my request, I need but this change, we're sending you a new asset, we'd be like, can you send it back through the ticket system? And I hate to be, ticket system driven, but it was the only way to make sure like final versions, final assets, final schedule, and everything was visible to everybody. And there was a complete capacity. There was a capacity visibility for the CMO too, because without any of that, it was in emails, texts,
Yes.
Slack channels. They were, talk about omni-channel.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't.
Yeah, and we built that and then immediately launched it and started to bring everybody through. There's one process and you need to have all these things, and some of these things are required. You need to have the description, the copy, all of this when you submit, and it needs to go in through the intake process form, and everything was standardized. So yeah, a little bit more structure for usually a highly creative department, but it was a perfect example of where you saw that the team was struggling with multiple requests coming in across too many different channels.
Yeah.
They all were asking for the same assets for all these types of sub processes. And there are tools that can support and we didn't have to do much. We didn't have to do a lot of system validation or like vendor comparisons because we had done something similar. So we're like, this is the cheapest, best solution, literally can get this up and running. And I think we got it up and running in like 6 weeks.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like that's an example where we centralized marketing intake so that afterwards it could be assigned and delegated. And then you get all your reporting and your
Yeah.
SLAs. And so when they say, oh, marketing's not getting back to us, well, we have the intake system, we have the entire workflow set up, and I have my SLAs, and it shows that actually we got back to you in 24 hours. You guys just didn't provide all the right assets.
I
So
love it.
it's about identifying where there are similar, like recognizing patterns where you do have systems that can support these different kind of maybe small nuances with a little bit of front end design and back end structure. And then, you have knowledge base and intake, and you can use online chat and support and all of those kind of things. But that's one where I would say that centralizing things outside of the traditional areas where organizations have centralized is, I don't know if that's really happening,
Mhm. Yeah.
HR centralized, IT centralized, payroll centralized,
Yeah.
so I don't know, that's how we tend to approach it, but I don't know. Do you have a different approach or any? Yeah.
No, I'm a huge centralization buff, actually. Like, I used to center all of my IT projects around trying to centralize as many things as I could because I usually worked with directors, CEOs, and the reporting was always the main issue. Like for one agency, they had people all over the globe. Okay, so if there's an emergency, tell me how you find out who's in Germany, for an example. Oh,
Yeah.
well, if I email HR, they'll give me an Excel spreadsheet, and then I'll email ops, and they have this system where they can track some people this way. But then we have another outlet over here that tracks people in, I think they do it through blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how long does it take if there's an emergency for you to figure out who you have in Germany? And he's like, about a day. I was
That's
like, it
insane.
should
That
take you about a minute
if you take one
because
minute, that's insane to me.
now we can have a whole podcast on change management when it came
Oh,
time to
yeah,
telling all those departments like, hey, guess what? There's new IT system.
I know.
You submit it here, and then the pain points, oh my goodness, of the change management, that was very tough, and that was a whole training segment that was like 6 months long to get people on board. But at the end of the day, that system is still running 10 years later because if you do it the right way, if you put in the time, you do the process, you centralize, you should have your information available to you in 2026 at your fingertips if you
I
do it the
agree.
right way, especially at the higher levels. Like, you need to be running your businesses centralized or streamlined as much as you can. And I do understand, like, there's always financial, especially those systems are completely different. You can't integrate
Sure.
with some operational systems. That's it can't be all centralized. I get that. And then
Yeah.
there's some CRMs, people put in place and they never use them. And that irks me too, but you got to find the right one. So how do you find the right one? And we'll probably get into that because my next question is once we
Hey.
identify the problems, clearly identify the problems, well, how should companies approach choosing and selecting the correct IT systems? Because that is a huge undertaking.
It is. And what I'm hearing from other CEOs too is that they're really afraid to make the wrong choice. And so if you bifurcate this between like middle market and below in enterprise, I think the decision is approached very differently. But if we go back to like where we are today, Jessica, it's AI, 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 AI. So what
Mhm.
is happening at the larger organization level? You have a chairman of the board probably telling the CEO, what are we doing for AI, AI,
Mhm.
AI,
Yep.
AI? And they're like, oh, why are we off our revenue targets? And oh, what are we doing about this massive litigation over here? And oh, don't forget AI, 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 right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's true. It's true.
well, and even our startup founders are like AI, AI, AI. And
Mhm.
depending on the team, they might come out the gate with, more advanced tools, but they're also completely uncentralized and not
Yep.
always enterprise and not always secured with your
Right.
data.
Right.
Um,
It's important.
so I think the most important thing, and one of the things that we've started to do is we do AI for the modern leader workshops where we really have AI for the modern leader, but it's technically automation. It's technically IT automation and data. That's really what we're doing. We just put it under AI because that's everybody's new
Buzzword. Yes.
buzzword,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
We do talk a lot about AI, but the biggest thing that I've always done is lay out a framework for how to determine the problem and how to prioritize the problem. So AI is not a broad brush or spray and pray
Yep.
solution to your business issues. If anything, it's as we were saying earlier, AI will just expose your
Yep.
operational and process and data issues faster,
Yep.
right?
For
Because
sure.
you can't train AI off of data in this stack, this stack, this stack, this folder, there's just
Won't work. It won't be sustainable.
exactly not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we always walk through, as part of our discovery, a deep dive into the problem that we're solving. And we do try to get tight on that before we end up in the room, but we really do that. And then we kind of do an overview of just their systems and other systems out there that might fill in some gaps. And then we walk through just AI and how AI can enable their leaders and how AI could be enabling in some of their processes. And then we really walk through like one of the big outputs that we come out with is okay, let's put a list of all of the pain points and then let's determine what the rough ROI is for that. So, like when you were describing this scenario, and if we walk through, like take it from start to finish, scenario that you were running through of the employee that it takes a day to figure out the German counterpart he needs to get answers asked. That is a perfect example. If we walked it through our WHIM framework for identifying and prioritizing where to start, that would be okay, you have that employee. It takes a day. So it's not a full 8 hours or 12 hours, but let's just say it's 2 hours with a 24-hour delay in the answer. What is the cost of the delay in getting that answer? And then what is the human cost? I don't know. That might be $1,000 human cost inefficiency every time it happens, times however many employees do that at your company every day.
Absolutely.
I've been shocked at how quickly these things can add up and how a focused approach to implementing is a very focused and clear approach can generate ROI quickly. But if you take the elephant and say we're going to try to address, the whole 1,000 Microsoft Copilot licenses and deploying it out to your team might check a box for AI, but if you're not checking usages, if you're not checking adoption, if Copilot or Gemini don't know where to learn and train because your systems and data and everything is all over the place. And this is kind of the startup model. I'm always like proof of concept first, technical feasibility, proof of concept at you can call it MVP, POC. You need to get base features up, running, agreed upon to then keep moving forward. In, everybody needs results quick. So that's where I think POC is broken into multiple phases where you start technically make sure the foundation's okay. And then you can build on top with more features, more processes once it's stable and ready and everybody's kind of on board.
Yeah, and it takes time. Like, I think people aren't realizing that. They're thinking AI, it saves you time in the long run, but the process to implement shouldn't be a sprint. It should be a walk to the run kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I had a question on here, like what risks do companies take when they try to design, select, and implement their IT systems in-house? Because what we're seeing is like, just like you said, there's people like the chairman, AI, they're forming these committees inside their companies. And they're not AI, they're not IT companies. They shouldn't know how to do this to begin with. And so they're forming these committees to try to establish what are they going to do with AI. But they need to remember it is an IT edge. They would never implement like cold fusion system or, anything like that on their own. They would call an IT company, boutique like yourself, and kind of help with the whole entire process from start to finish and then start sailing from there. So I see a lot of the companies having these committees, but that's a lot of wasted. For me, I think it's a lot of wasted resources. They're doing a lot of research, but unless you come from this industry, it's really hard. I have an AI company and I struggle to keep up with all the research of all the stuff rolling out on a weekly, daily basis. With that, on top of that, I've noticed all these AI systems, they have more upgrades than the IT systems by a long shot. So not only do you need to do your research, you need to continue to do that research once you have your systems to the committees that are forming, to the companies who are forming these committees. What risks do they have? And what is your take on it? Maybe it's different. I don't know.
Well, I have two takes on it. And I might put myself in the position of if I was the CEO of those companies. Step one is I would make a decision as to whether my organization wants to be bleeding edge or the leading edge, which is take all the lessons learned from those that are old, that took the first.
Yes. So that's a good way to put it. I love it. I'm taking that
Well,
one.
especially if I was non-tech, like if I was non-tech, and taking a strategic decision, a bold and brave strategic decision, is literally what needs to happen to keep us relevant in the marketplace. So let's just assume I'm not a tech committee. If I were in step one, I'd make a decision of, is this a situation where I want to be bleeding edge, or can I pause and start to look at the foundational things so that after the hype settles and we figure out what the monetization strategy is for some of these LLM, big $1.4 trillion valuation needs to start making a lot of money quick. What's the fastest way to make money? Advertising. And that just defeats the whole purpose of where the users started. That's why Claude, I think Anthropic's going to have some adorable Super Bowl ads coming out this weekend combating that. But so the first thing is, do you really need to be bleeding edge? The other piece is that in this day and age, there are so many new software options that are coming up through the early rounds to Series A, and they're still proving product market fit. They're still trying to figure out where they're at. And there is risk, and I will say this happened actually to a committee that I was a part of about 5 years ago. There is risk that if you select one of those new .ai platforms, that it's not here in 3 years. Like you have to do quite a bit of due diligence, and I know a lot of enterprises would not have that go through their software procurement. They do like 6 months of validating even
Yeah.
that to be an option for their employees, but that is always a risk. Being cutting edge is always a risk. But I go back to like my days playing like D1 volleyball. And the first thing I would do is make sure if this is something that's an important strategic initiative for the business or the board, I would make sure I built the superstar team. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh my gosh.
what's the superstar team look like? The teams that know, like, I mean, it's a combination of business and IT, but not everybody's going to be on the all-star team. And I don't mean the all-star team for AI, but like, if you're going to build the best team, you've got to have a combination of those things as a part of the journey and making the identifying the issue, understanding if it can be solved with what you already have in house, or if it is truly a gap that does require a new set of software and infrastructure to address or skill sets.
Yeah, and I might be a little biased here, but I think hiring the smaller boutique type companies to come in, they seem to be more well-rounded because they can handle the capacity to do your full-fledged wall to wall, like you said. They can come in, help you assess where you're at. How are your processes? Great. They're good. They're great, or they're okay. Let's get them to great. Let's do that step one. Let's analyze what systems work best for you. Because I know you know your clients, one client, a system might fit perfectly for them, but definitely not for over here. It's not like, oh, it's one size fits all. You get that customized experience when you're working with this more boutique feel tech companies because they just give you a full package, I think. I think that's really important. And then implementation comes, but then also most of, like you and I talked about this in the past, the maintenance aspect, the maintenance after that aspect is important too. Once you have spent all this time and money implementing, fixing the processes, here we go. Then what's your maintenance? What's your sustainability plan? Then where you want to go? And then, hey, when the updates do come out, how does this affect the system? I've had clients that had to pivot to different systems. As you said, as some of them are rolling out, they might become a little bit irrelevant in a couple of years, but you keep your team on, find that all-star team that can walk you through, get you onboarded, and the times are rapid right now. You need to find a trustworthy boutique niche kind of tech company that can stick with you long term. They're your consultants.
Hilarious.
Yes, it's worth the investment. How much is your business worth to you? Like you said, if you break down the cost of the inefficiencies, it's monumental. And I don't know. In this day and age, I feel like if I wasn't a tech company, I would definitely be leaning towards assets. We don't claim to be financial analysts, advisors. We hire people for that. You
Yeah,
know, that's just what you have to do. I'm not a marketing agency. I hire people for that.
exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah. So if I were to build my dream teams of skill sets, just to wrap this out, because the other thing is you don't you don't want to be hyper cutting edge and then create massive governance and risk issues
true.
afterwards, right?
That's
Like
true too.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
flip side. I would say for the core processes that you're going to start with MVP, you need the strongest in process understanding, and everybody knows who that person is. Like literally, they know all the processes. They're the go-to for everything, right? It's like
Yeah.
you need business support from whatever departments you're working with, finance, marketing, whatever it might be. I think you need legal in there as
Oh,
well,
yes.
because
Mhm.
a lot of companies need to update their overall policies, especially their IT policies. They need to update probably how they onboard people, depending on how you want to use AI and what you're doing with it. But I
Yep.
would say that there should be some legal support there. I think you need a very strong, multifaceted IT person who also knows digital. And I think you probably need leadership in there to make sure that they are understanding a little bit more detail around what needs to happen and where in this process there are some unknowns. And that's what I will say with AI, because I think we've had two projects where we implemented a number of AI agents in between pretty cornerstone SaaS products that are out there, pretty corner, pretty cornerstone workflow management, project management, and CRMs. And I will tell you that um, in any time that there is something new and sexy in tech, there's a lot of great marketing, there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of people that are great at marketing but not good at the tech that will just cloud everything out. And then you have all of these software package account sales teams, right, that want to
Yeah.
sell you what they've been told the product does. But when you get into the nitty gritty of some of these things, that's where the sausage is made. And I will tell you, there's been a number of instances where it was clear to us that the marketing for the Cornerstone SaaS products could not actually handle what they had been marketing. And when we tried to have the agents connect and go between and take triggers, to actually execute items, that they really got stuck in a number of places. So that's where I think more than like There was always uncertainty in software and enterprise
Yeah.
implementations, IT projects. There's always uncertainty, but this one has a little bit more uncertainty. So I would also like double your cushion for time. So if your cushion is 20%, if you think this is a 4 week project, then make it 8 and add an extra 20% cushion to your budget to make sure that you can work through some of those technical things that you really will not identify until you get in it. But to your point, that's what I think, like boutiques are fantastic because these big agencies are just like big companies, which are different, big software development firms. Everybody, AI has so many different angles that you really, in some cases, you need to ask the dumb questions. You need to ask the dumb questions because those dumb questions are actually, they might feel dumb, but they are actually not.
Right.
There's a lot of confusion out there.
That's like the ongoing from everybody we speak to, have spoken to in the past, the confusion or the uncertainty. But I love how there's a curiosity. I love that people are being curious about it. But as a CEO founder level, they need to start getting a little bit more action oriented when it comes to this stuff. And whether or not they have dived into the AI arena yet. I know they're thinking about it, but I think they start with the policies because whether they know it or not, their employees are using it. If they're using it personally, they're using it at work. Where are the ethics? You have to, you know what I mean? Like I hear that all the time, and a lot of CEOs give me those the deer in the headlights, and I don't blame them because we're in the new age. You have to take out your SOPs, start combing through them, get legal involved. That's another big one.
Get legal involved in the process, procurement as well.
Oh
And
yeah.
and each organization will know the right moment to bring those parties in. But I think in this having legal support on some of these policy changes and things to consider, and having legal due diligence on some of these companies. Like if you're gonna, I think for the most part, the major LLMs, we all see are kind of on the market or going out for IPO. You can roughly expect they're okay. But what about those middle tier software packages, right? Like have legal go due diligence on that entity. I will never forget, like one of our clients last year was throwing a massive event, and they did not have a centralized technology IT team. They had a traditional IT team,
Right.
which worked on laptops and network and stuff, but they did not have a modern IT team. And the business went out and selected a very new event management software that was a startup. This was such a high profile event. They went and selected and almost signed the contract, and because we were kind of like the digital team as a service, we weren't set up as like that key point person,
Yeah.
but that was a key input into our product suite. And I interviewed the CEO and the CTO, and let me just tell you this, they had no security, privacy controls. They were a non-technical team and were probably about to support the largest event they have ever, like an event that was on the like Ticketmaster level size.
Wow.
Like, and so I said, there's no way you can go with this vendor. I said, we need to quickly pivot. This will be catastrophic. I was like, this will be a catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
And it really
Wow.
pissed off a lot of people, but we quickly pivoted, brought in an old go-to because it was in a critical high visibility visitor fan journey. And the
Wow.
fact that that decision could get made without any technology expertise is terrifying. That's what happens. Like, that's what happens, you
Yeah.
know?
I would be hard pressed to believe that that doesn't happen more often than we think. It happens a lot. It's unfortunate, but those that are getting ahead of the curve and like doing the research and stuff are gonna kind of dodge those situations, I hope. That's
Yes.
wow, that's crazy. Well, listen, so the need for agencies like yourself grinding and helping people and helping these companies that just don't really know where to go from here. It's critical right now in this new wave. So before we wrap things up, I'm sure there's people listening that understand or probably don't understand half of what you said and want to call you. Where can they find your company? Where can we look for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us online. wearewhim.com, www.wearewhim.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, We Are Whim, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Lori McColl. And we do have some fun stuff on TikTok and Instagram, but I'd say that you'll find the most of what we've got online. It's
I'm
on,
going to look now, Lori.
yeah, it's on,
I love it. I love it. And let's
oh,
talk
well,
about your
thank you so much.
volleyball later. I played volleyball, no D1 sport here, but I played
Oh,
volleyball a little bit. That's a tough sport, especially when you're short. I'm a little bit shorter, so I
hey,
wasn't that good.
short is great in volleyball. That's why we the
You
libero.
think? All right. Well, Lori, thanks again. This was very informative. I loved everything you had to say, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch. For our listeners, thanks again for listening to the Future Proof Leader. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Great.